Welcome to the Thrive in Fashion podcast, where we explore the role of the fashion buyer, the knowledge and skill sets required for success, and the impact of the role in your retail business. In each episode, you will learn about industry best practice and how the buyer's role is evolving in this ever-changing, fast-paced industry. And now, here is your host, a fashion industry expert with over 20 years of experience, Elisabeth Mac Hale.
You don't have to be a qualified accountant to work as a fashion buyer, but you do need to know how to read and understand the numbers and how to calculate key essential buying metrics. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Thrive in Fashion podcast. I'm your host, Elisabeth Mac Hale, and today we're talking about key metrics for fashion buyers. Mastering these is a must-have for understanding your business, optimizing your inventory and driving profitability, and also important for making smart data-driven buying decisions. I'll share some examples of how each metric works as I go through them. First, let's look at sell-through rate. Sell-through is one of my favorite indicators for sales performance, and it measures how quickly your products sell. A high sell-through indicates that your products are moving well, while a low sell-through can signal the opposite, and potentially an even bigger issue of stock building up. As this metric is based on quantity bought versus quantity sold, you may have strong sales, but a low sell-through because you overbought on your order quantity. Or you may have low sales, but a really strong sell-through because you underbought your stock. When looking at sell-through, make sure that you understand what you are looking at and what you are measuring. It's important to specify a time frame in which you actually want to measure the sales sell-through. For example, that can be a specific week or a specific number of weeks. Make sure that you quantify what you're looking at and that you're benchmarking your expected sell-through number against what you planned. The metric is calculated using quite a simple formula, and it is displayed as a percentage. You take the number of units sold divided by the number of units received for that order and multiply by 100 to convert into a percentage. As I mentioned, the most important way to use this is to measure whether it is achieving the target sell-through that you planned for a product for a week's sales or that you expected after a month of sales. For example, if you're a buyer for a women's wear fashion brand and you bought 1,000 units of a new floral summer dress, in the first month you sell 600 units. Using the formula for your sell-through rate, this would be 600 units sold divided by the 1,000 units order quantity received, multiplied by 100 to reach 60% sell-through. This 60% sell-through rate is good, it's strong, and can indicate that the style was well received by your customers. And with this information, you might decide to increase your order, or alternatively, if the sell-through was only 20%, you might consider taking corrective action. And this can be maybe to mark down the price, perhaps move stock to a different location if that's available, adjust the visual merchandising or the positioning of the product in stores to see if that will improve sales. Using percentages is a great way to compare the sell-through of products within a category. You may have 10 different styles in a category, and you bought different quantities across each. Using the formula calculation and measuring across the same time period can be a good way to review the sales of the products. For example, the 10 or 20 styles that you had in a specific category, you can review and benchmark which one was really strong and selling very well, and which ones were not. The most important thing is to set weekly or monthly sell-through targets. Reviewing these ensures that you can act quickly if a product isn't performing well and minimize potential losses. The next metric I want to speak about is your week stock cover or weeks of supply. This metric tells you how long your inventory or stock will last based on your current sales trends. Again, the formula is pretty simple. Your current stock level divided by your average weekly sales. That average weekly sales figure can be average weekly in a month or over a quarter. understand again specifically what it is you're measuring. So, for example, if you are responsible for buying handbags and you have 800 units in stock and average weekly sales of 100 units, your weekly stock figure would be 800 divided by 100 units per week, and that gives you 8 weeks. When you're using this metric on a never out of stock item or a key item, you can benchmark whether or not your stock levels are dropping and monitor it this way. Some buyers prefer to use this metric to show a particular style and how much stock they have in order to make their buying decisions. Other buyers prefer to use sell-through rate. It's a preference or a choice. I would normally look at both of them and make my decisions accordingly. If you had 8 weeks of stock, it shows that you have a comfortable stock position, and that's a general average. But it does depend on your market niche, whether you are running a very tight turnover rate and you want to work off 6 to 8 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks cover. In some product categories, like children's wear or home textiles, there are certain products that will run between 8 and 12 weeks or even longer. So understand what the numbers are saying. If you're benchmarking 8 weeks of stock, then it indicates you have a comfortable stock position. But if this figure jumps to 15 weeks, it may suggest that you're overbought and the product isn't moving or selling as you expected, and therefore you need to take some corrective action to avoid excess stock and make space on the retail floor for products that will sell. Within a style where you have a number of colour options, you can also review the stock cover per colour. Perhaps one colour is down to 4 week stock, another 2 colours may be on 8 week stock, and one specific colour is on 15-week stock. Here, there could be a specific colour issue, and you have to choose to take action and manage your stock levels. If your week stock cover drops to 2 weeks on a particular style, you need to look at perhaps reordering this quickly to avoid running out of stock. But to be honest, if you're tracking your sales every week and there was a particular item that you saw was selling really well, you would not wait until it had dropped to such a low level to try and reorder, unless you were really caught by surprise when it initially hit the shop floor. Everything that you do as a buyer, certainly when you're planning quantities and orders, is a balancing act. And even with all of the metrics or sales data available and the best will in the world, when you're doing a merchandising plan, you can still get caught off guard. Understanding what you're doing, how you're reading the numbers, how you're interpreting those week on week can go a long way to making decisions to avoid overstocks or stock shortages during the trading season. Use the weekly stock figure to guide your buying and reordering decisions, balancing between not tying up too much cash in stock and having enough stock to meet demand. This also ties back into how you manage your OTB or your open to buy, and that's a subject I cover in a lot of detail in the Thrive in Fashion Buying and Merchandising course. If you're interested to learn more, you might want to check that out at thriveinfashion.com. The next metric is the inventory turnover or stock turnover rate. This metric shows how efficiently you are selling and replacing your stock, again within a specific time frame. The formula here is the cost of goods sold divided by your average inventory. Imagine you're a buyer for a casual wear apparel brand, and over a year, your cost of goods is $500,000, while your average inventory on hand is $100,000. So your inventory turnover rate would be $500,000 divided by $100,000, which equals 5. That example is given over a 12-month period. You can also do this over a half-year period or quarterly to get a good indication of where you're sitting. The figure of 5 means that you're turning over your stock 5 times a year, which is generally healthy. However, if your turnover rate is low, for example, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, it can mean that your products are sitting too long on the shelves and tying up cash, and thus increasing the risk of markdowns and your products becoming irrelevant, particularly if you're talking about fashion products. In this case, you might want to analyze which items are underperforming and adjust your buying strategy accordingly. Do bear in mind that within your product range, you may have different life cycles and timeframes for different segments of products. So this is not necessarily one size fits all, but it is a really good metric overall as to how your products are turning over and selling. Benchmark your turnover rate against similar retailers or brands to understand whether your stock management is on par or maybe needs some improvement. High turnover rates are really good for cash flow, but do be careful that you don't run short on stock, particularly on your best-selling lines. Lastly, I want to cover markdowns and markdown rate. This metric shows how much revenue you're losing to discounts, and this is calculated by the total markdown amount divided by the total sales, and again multiplied by 100 to get a percentage. For example, if you run a luxury outerwear department and offer $10,000 in markdowns on total sales of $50,000, your markdown rate formula would be 10,000 divided by 50,000 multiplied by 100 for the percentage, and that gives you 20%. A 20% markdown rate may be high depending on your profit margin, showing that you should be relooking at your pricing or stock planning. By analysing your markdown data, you can learn which products or categories incurred heavy discounts within a particular season, allowing you to refine your future buying decisions. Normally, before buying, you will have built in a certain percentage in your budget and buy plan for markdowns, as it's impossible to completely sell 100% of products all of the time. It's normal, even for a bestseller, that you may be left with some sizes that didn't sell, or maybe some particular colours. So there is always an amount factored in to allow for the costs of markdowns. And this can vary from business to business and also from category to category. So it could be perhaps 10% in one category or as high as 25% in another. It's important that you just understand that if you had planned, for example, 15% markdown in a specific category and found that you actually spent 20% on markdowns, then you need to look and find the answers as to why that happened. Why did it get so high? Were you making incorrect buying decisions? Was the product not right, or perhaps the timing was off? Did you have late deliveries? This is a metric that you can manage and control to some extent, but it does go right back to what I've previously talked about in terms of your market research, understanding your customer, and making sure that you're buying right for your niche in the market. You can use past markdown trends to forecast and prevent similar situations of high markdowns. For instance, if you have consistently had to mark down a specific category, I would definitely consider buying less or even discounting that category. There's no point in spending a lot of time and effort buying into a category that your customers are telling you they're really not interested in. If it's specifically a niche category, then it may not fit within your business model. If it's a category that sells at certain times of the year, then factor that in and make sure that you're planning and buying quantities for that specific time period and understand the level of markdowns that may apply accordingly. That wraps up today's look at some of the essential buyer metrics. Remember that understanding the metrics and numbers allows you to make better buying decisions with the goal of optimizing your buy and maximizing profitability. If you have any questions or found this of value, please feel free to leave a comment about the show. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show. For more of Elisabeth's industry tips and to learn more about how you can develop your buying skills, visit thriveinfashion.com. There you can find show notes for this episode and every episode. Also, register for the Thrive in Fashion program and sign up for weekly news delivered straight to your inbox. Until next time.